suggest. But again, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
So let's begin our journey into your life of tutoring and helping people get to a better place. And I want to ask you this. Um, how much of living through that pandemic affected the way that you do things now? Did you see a spike? How many reverberations from that time period has gone into your life now in this new year that we're in?
Right. So it was an interesting time. I wish I could say that it was just me as an observer, but I was also affected and I was also a participant. I was also really in the wave as it was tumbling and trying to help my staff and my students and their parents and their families make sense of it as I was trying to make sense of it as well. Um, it was a community symbiotic experience. Everybody was kind of going through it together. And I saw a lot as it was happening that was clearly impacting the way that education was going, the way that individual students and their families were handling everything. And now there's the ripple effects that I try to be able to put my finger on and say, is this a result of 2020, 2021, 2022? Or is it just I'm getting older and time is passing and things are changing? It's kind of hard to separate the COVID effects from just kind of life. Um, the main result that I saw that I continue to see is that there's less of a uniformity as to what used to be called like a fifth grade level or like a ninth grade math level. There is much more variety in terms of kids' capabilities, in terms of their interests, in terms of their background knowledge. And that goes beyond just content.
Yeah.
Do kids know how to take notes? Do they know how to raise their hand in class? Are they aware of how to manage their time? Do they understand the difference between a short-term assignment and a long-term assignment and how to operate there? A lot of the kind of fundamental features of academia, and I'm putting that in quotes because it's also just life living. Time management isn't exclusively relegated to school.
Yeah.
Got kind of jumbled up. And a lot of the kids who were experiencing their formative years during COVID, they lost a lot of really important features of education that isn't just in a textbook, but that really comes with just being in school, in the classroom, in the grind Monday to Friday of being a student. And also, I think that their home lives were frequently disrupted, but again, not in a uniform way. So the way that every kid got spit out after the pandemic was different. I'm very fortunate and very grateful to have a one-on-one educational experience with my students, so I can really just cater everything to what that one kid is going through and what they need.
Yeah.
Being a classroom teacher seems much more challenging now
Yeah.
because when you used to have 15, 20, 30 kids in a room, that was already quite a spectrum to try to reach.
Yeah.
I think that the spectrum's even more broad nowadays, and it's harder to really make sure that everybody is engaged, everybody's needs are being met, everybody's feeling catered to. So I think that teachers have a harder job. I think that kids are having a tougher time. And the systems around them are all still trying to adjust. It's an ongoing effort, and I think it's a story that's not really going to be done being told for a while.
Absolutely. Well, I work in the education system. I'm an IT technician for a school district. So those socio psychological aspects of kids, like people like us, we've been around for a while. This was like one of the first big, huge historic moments for all of us collectively together. But these kids being new people on the planet, trying to navigate and then taking away all of these supports that are essential to them to grow, it just reverberated into everything from academics and on. So yeah, like you
Mhm.
said, I think it's going to be a long time before we can actually hone in and put it under the microscope and say, okay, this is what happened. This is what's going on.
Yeah, and it's tricky because there's a beginning and an end to the pandemic in a lot of people's minds. And I'm putting
Right.
that in quotes because it's hard to know where it starts and stops.
Yeah.
And people are very comfortable to say, well, the pandemic is over. And sure, what we saw in 2020, 2021 is no longer happening frequently everywhere. Great. But the after effects are ongoing.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. The reverberation seems to be perhaps eternal. This might just be a generation. I'm hearing the term COVID kids. I've been hearing that for a while.
Yeah.
That is just a little bit different. And then they are going to be the role models, the older siblings, the teachers, the parents of the next generation. And then subsequently, those people are going to be affected as well. It put quite a dent in whatever trajectory we had going as a nation, as a society, educationally, however it might be. It spun things off, that's for sure.
So let me ask you this. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
So as a child, just like any 4 foot tall Jewish New Yorker, I wanted to be a professional basketball player, obviously. And I had great ambition. There were a number of sub 6 foot tall basketball players who I worshipped. And I was like, I could be Spud Webb, I could be Muggsy Bogues, I could be
Yep.
those guys. I didn't recognize that their thighs were 6 times the size of my waist and that they're just these 1 out of 1 billion athletes. I was like, I'm kind of fast. So let's go for it. That was definitely my goal. And then once I maybe hit like 14 or 15 years old, and I was like, oh, no,
Yeah.
that's not for me, professionally at least. I then wanted to be a writer. And I feel like I knew at that age that writing was an extension of thinking and was a relative of talking. And so communication really became a passion of mine in the spoken word and written word. Uh, yeah, around 14, 15, I really dug into it. Um, and as an educator, I really feel like my actual job is to communicate.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, I write, that happens, but professionally, tutor, whatever, company owner, teacher, however the label might fall on me. My job is to listen and to engage and to communicate. So using the language is kind of my thing.
So, what was the first book for you growing up that really opened up the doors to you to want to read more? What was that book for you?
So reading was something I knew I was supposed to do. And so I did it. I went to the library and I found the books that were entertaining. Roald Dahl was my guy.
Yeah.
I flew through every Roald Dahl book because it was engaging, it was interesting, he kept me on my toes, it was funny, lots of surprises. But I didn't really like reading, I liked being entertained.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I read this ridiculously thick Michael Jackson biography
Wow.
where I was like, I'm enjoying just page after page after page. And sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's boring. It's not all glamour and glitz. It was a really in-depth tale of Michael Jackson, the person, not just the celebrity public figure entertainer.
Yeah.
And I found myself on the couch being like, this is what I want to be doing. I don't want to be watching TV. I don't want to be playing basketball. I want this book in my hands.
Yeah.
And then I jumped from biography to biography to biography. And I remember early on trying to explain to students why reading is valuable because they're like, look, whatever information's in that book, I can get it from a movie, from a show, from a YouTube video. And I'm telling them the information isn't really the point. The medium is often the message.
Yep.
And what a book does, it forces you to be the narrator. It's your voice in your head, and it's the images that your mind creates. So it's a very personal experience that you don't really get when you're just passively watching a movie or a video or a TV show. Now you're just looking at the language and you're creating the entire environment, the structure, the textures, the colors in your head. Well, now this is an experience that you're really having on your own with this ink on the page.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something very almost mystical about what reading can do for a person, not just in terms of retaining or gaining information, but about kind of that personal experience of making it part of them.
Wasn't it Marshall McLuhan that said the message is the media?
That's right.
Yeah. 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 So let me ask you this. When did you know that tutoring was your path in life? Was there a moment? Was there a client? Was there a time period? How did you know this was going to be your calling?
I still don't. Um, I'm 43. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this is the job I've had my entire adult life. So both my parents were teachers, and my dad passed away when I was 10, and I have a little sister. So my mom, in order to be home with us more, started tutoring. And this was in the early 1990s. Tutoring wasn't really like an industry.
Yeah.
And for her, she wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. She was just like, I got to keep this ship afloat. So she was just kind of a nice lady at her dining room table with neighborhood kids coming by, and she would help them with their homework. She would occasionally prepare them for a standardized test. And I watched this as a kid. I didn't really give it much thought. It was just kind of what was happening, amongst other things that were happening. So I wake up on Saturday morning and my mom is tutoring some kid in the dining room. And I come home from school. It's 4:30, 5 o'clock, and my mom's tutoring some kid. So I got very accustomed to seeing tutoring happening. And I graduated from school with a degree in philosophy and television production, also known as nothing. And was looking for direction. But it was only a few months after I graduated that my mom said, I have a student here who's working on some stuff that I don't know how to do. Can you help out? I tutored that kid. That kid told a friend about me. The friend told a neighbor. Neighbor told a sibling. Suddenly I had a job. Um, I didn't know it was going to be what I do as an
Right.
adult. Uh, really, I mean, I'm kind of being serious when I say I still don't really know that.
Sure.
It's a referral-based business. I've been very fortunate to stay busy and stay active as a tutor. I know that all it takes is a few bad phone calls and then time for me to find something else to do.
Yeah.
But the notion of working one-on-one with a kid or just really spending time with children in a professional counselor guidance setting, I've done quite a bit. My younger sister, I was a peer leader in high school, a camp counselor when I was a teenager. I always really enjoyed being around younger people. So it was pretty natural progression for me to go working with kids, working in education, being a tutor. The business part is kind of the odd feature of my life,
Yeah.
but I kind of operate that as I can.
So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been that inspiration for you in your life?
Personally, my mom is certainly a hero. There's no question about that. Whether I want it to be the case or not, it is. So she's remarkably inspiring, incredibly resilient, really hardworking, very giving, very selfless, very dedicated, and flexible. But outside of my household, the list of heroes is pretty long. Um, Socrates was a hero of mine early on when I started studying philosophy pretty seriously. You hear about Socrates. I knew him from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't recognize how valuable the almost cliches that get attributed to him really are. And learning about really his messages. His life, I don't know much about, and it's possible he actually never even existed. But the ideas that are connected to his name really made a huge impact on me as a teenager. Um, so yeah, he was definitely a hero.
So, if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, whether it's a writer or somebody that you admire, spend a little time with them, ask them questions. Who would you love to meet and talk to for a little bit?
That's a great question. I would say Pat Riley.
Okay. Interesting.
Pat Riley is somebody who I find to be incredibly mysterious, but undeniably successful and wildly fascinating. He's someone who I've had in my head as kind of a fighter. And again, I'm going to kind of go back to the adjectives I attributed to my mom. He was incredibly flexible. He pivoted roles quite a bit. But when I think about his career from a basketball player to a coach, I'm not sure. Pat Riley, he was an NBA player. He was an NBA coach. Now he's front office for the Miami Heat. Um, he took on these different roles and really excelled and was a pioneer in many ways in a lot of these different places. I'm a diehard Knicks fan, have been my entire life. And it wasn't until he became the coach, at least in my lifetime, that the Knicks were a serious organization.
Yeah.
And he came and went.
Yeah.
He was the guy. He was like the sun in my sky, and then became the enemy very quickly.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to grapple with that. So yeah, he's somebody who I think I would ask a lot of questions to about planning, about pivoting, about learning. I think that he's a great student of not just the sport of basketball, but the business. And that to me is a really fascinating individual, somebody who what they really do well is learn. That I think is really the ultimate human ability is
Yeah.
to be a capable, supple learner. And he's somebody who I think really does embody that.
So, what is the motivation for you every day to do this work? You got to give of yourself to help others get to a better place educationally and
Mhm.
beyond. And
Mhm.
you have to evolve as a human being. What is that collective energy for you every day to do that?
Right, that's another great question. I view them as being two birds with one stone. When I tutor, I get a lot from my sessions with students are very invigorating for me. Whether they're successes or not. I learn a lot, I gain a lot, and I really can attribute a lot of my daily joy to the sessions that I have with students. But I'm really living vicariously through them a lot of the times. I did not like school. I didn't value the lessons, the curricula, the education. I didn't really appreciate the effort that my teachers put forth. I didn't take it seriously. I definitely took it for granted, and I found it to be an obstruction to my joy. I didn't like it.
Yes.
So kids go to school. They're going to do that, and most of them don't like it. I really feel motivated to try to give them an opportunity, give them a perspective to enjoy it,
Yeah.
to find some purpose and meaning that goes beyond achieving a grade, earning some accolade, getting to the next step, not getting in trouble, not getting punished, like avoiding some negative consequence. I'm inspired to provide them with some sort of a carrot to follow that is really true, that is really a sincere, internalized sense of incentive that they can hopefully not just carry forth while I'm working with them, but bring with them in all levels of learning, which I think is a lifelong experience,
Yeah.
and to encourage them to value the process of learning. It's it's tricky because that's not actually what I get hired to do. Parents
Sure.
don't usually call me and say, "Hey, I want you to inspire my child to love learning."
Yeah.
But whatever it is I am asked to do, that's a part of it.
Yeah.
So I really do feel motivated to give them something that I didn't have as a kid,
Yeah.
but that I did engender as an adult an appreciation for learning. And that's ongoing. That's not something that I just feel like I did and then I'm done.
Yeah.
I really value it. And I want them to be able to be as good at it as possible and recognize that it is a skill.
So, of all of these things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
So I am very proud of the amount of time I've been able to spend with my family and friends.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that's a given. And I think that there's a lot of accomplishments that I could hang my hat on, but the accomplishments themselves aren't really all that worthy of being thrilled about necessarily. But what did I get from them? I've really been gifted the opportunity to spend time with family and friends. My profession has given me a schedule that is quite malleable. I can adjust my schedule as I see fit. And I worked alongside my mom for a while. And my sister is local. And I have a lot of friends in the area, or even not in the area nowadays, with technology. I can interact with my friends quite a bit throughout my day. I'm very proud that I've established a life where not only can I devote as much time as possible to my wife and my kid, but my family and friends extended beyond my household. I really do cherish the life that I've carved out for myself that's conducive to spending time with them.
So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that you know in your life, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I would say that I'm without title. I go into a miscellaneous bin, happily. Not to say that like I'm some uncategorizable, ineffable entity, but I shift. And yet that is a consistent feature of me.
Yeah.
So I think that it's tough to put a finger on what I am and who I am, and what I'm up to. But I think overall, the idea of being pretty true to myself, um, and I think that that is probably the nature of my uh, somewhat inconsistent uh, uh, idea that I put out there.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I mean, it's a great question. The notion of perception, it's something that I've always recognized is not up to me.
Sure.
That however I'm perceived, I can't control that. And I gave up on attempting to control that a very long time ago. So I accept that somebody's perception of me, that's more a view of them than it is of me.
Yeah.
But I don't think that if you got 50 people in a room who know me, that there would be a lot of consistency amongst those 50 people. Um, which that's probably the consistent feature that I'm tough to put a finger on.
So let me ask you this: as a Knicks and NBA fan, if you could get into a time machine when we get off this call and go back in time and see any game, one game,
Mm.
where are you
Mm.
going?
Wow. Um, that's a tough one. I would see it live, you're saying.
Oh yeah, you get to see
All
it.
right. Um, well, I'm a fan of history, and the Knicks did participate in the first NBA game against the
Wow.
Toronto Huskies, I believe.
Wow. I didn't.
Um, and I don't know what that atmosphere must have been like. Obviously, sports are all, they've been important in America for a long time. Basketball, I think, existed as a collegiate entertainment spectacle for a while leading up to that. But to be in, I'm going to call it a barn. I assume the first game was in a barn. To be in whatever space that was, knowing this is the first National Basketball Association game, it kind of gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Also, just knowing, where it goes, how far the sport goes, and specifically how far the Knicks have gone. Um, that first game would probably be very special to be at.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, hey, if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about what you're doing, any of the good business, where do they go?
So my company is called Hartman Tutoring, Hartman. So you can go to hartmantutoring.com. All the information about the services we provide are right there, as is my contact info. So yeah, you can feel free to hit that up and check it out.
Right on, man. This has been great. Thank you. I appreciate your time, appreciate your story. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. You too. Have a good one.
Thank you.